Good afternoon and good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's chat. We're going to be talking about sleep and weight and what is the connection. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. My name is Maria Cecilia Mosquera. I am a pediatrician and a public health preventive medicine physician. I'm also a lifestyle medicine physician, which is why we're talking about sleep today. I'm also trained in obesity medicine. I'll tell you a little bit about what lifestyle medicine is, just so that you understand why I have an interest in sleep as a doctor. So, lifestyle medicine has six different parts. One is healthy eating, two is physical activity, three is managing stress, four is healthy relationships, five is sleep, and six is avoiding risky substances. So today we're going to be talking about one of the six pillars in lifestyle medicine, which is sleep. That's why I, as a doctor, want to talk about and think about sleep. So our goal today is let's talk about how to get more restful sleep. And the reason we're talking about sleep and weight is tomorrow, March 4th, 2021, is World Obesity Day. So around the world, we're going to be talking about obesity. And today, we'd like to talk about what the connection is between obesity, weight, and sleep. So for today's talk, we're going to be talking about that connection between sleep and weight. We're going to describe what it actually means to have good sleep. And we're going to give you tips on how you can prepare your routine and environment to help you with sleep, and talk about some tools that you can use to even get more better sleep. So for today's session, we're going to be talking about an hour, which means that although I'm sitting down in a chair, I would encourage you to please stand up, stretch, or move as you need or want. And if you're watching this live on YouTube, you have the capacity to write in the YouTube chat box. So I'll be looking at it. So if you see me look off to the side, I'm looking off to the chat box on my phone to try to make sure I can catch any questions or comments you may have. So remember to stretch and move. If you are watching this as a recording, just remember that you can change and turn on the Greek subtitles if you would like to watch this presentation with Greek subtitles. The instructions for this are on the screen right now, and they're also at the bottom of the YouTube recording. So today we're going to be talking about sleep, and we acknowledge that we're in the middle of a pandemic with COVID-19. And on a regular day, a regular year, you would have all the pressures that are listed on the screen: your family, your work, your finances, maybe school, all the things that daily life mean to us, and the things that keep us busy and keep our thoughts running at the end of the day. But in the middle of a pandemic, that is even expanded. We know we've actually done a study that looked at how lockdown in Cyprus was affected in 2020 by the COVID pandemic, and how the lifestyle factors like sleep were affected in people who were living in Cyprus. And we know that sleep, along with stress and other lifestyle factors, were affected in lockdown. So because of that, we are having this conversation today. We'd like to share with you some things that we know about sleep, how there are tools and tips that can help, and to share with you the connection with weight so you understand what it means. So first of all, if you are watching this live, I'd love to ask you if you wanted to share in the YouTube chat box. I'll be watching it. If you can share with us, how much sleep do you usually get on an average night? Or maybe how much sleep do you need? So maybe you say, I can only sleep about 5 hours a night, but I know that on a regular day, I feel better after I sleep 7 hours. I'll say for myself, I know that I need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. And if I sleep less than 7, then I can feel it. I usually feel my brain a little bit foggy. I can't concentrate as much in the morning. Maybe I feel more tired during the day, or I feel more hungry. How about you? I'll look at the chat box, and although I don't see any comments now, if I'll look and see if I see any later, I'll let you know if people have commented. So we're going to talk about that, because part of having good sleep is knowing how much you need, thinking about how well you're sleeping, and what your pattern of sleep is. So we're going to talk about that and describe it. We're going to start with how much sleep do you actually need. So adults need on average about 7 to 9 hours of sleep per 24 hours, which is usually per one day, one full day. And this is the amount of sleep that people need for what's called optimal performance, so that you can do your job, let's say, the best that you can. You can go through your day with the best way possible. So that's on average for adults. And I'm just looking at the chat box because I appreciate and see some people who have given us some thoughts on how much sleep they actually get. So somebody commented around 5.5 hours or to 5 hours, and they need about 7.5. So that's good that you already have some awareness of how much you need. It's unfortunate that maybe you're getting a little bit less now than you need. Other people have commented that they need about 8 to 9 hours. Then they might get less than that. So thank you to those of you who are commenting. So some of you are commenting that maybe you're not able to get at this time the amount of sleep that we know that most people, most adults need in one day. And you might be asking, but I'm maybe an older adult. Don't I need less sleep? I've heard that people as they get older need less sleep. So we know that children and adolescents need more sleep than the average adult. I won't be talking about youth today, but we'll be talking about adults. So I wanted to share with you that it is true that older adults might need less sleep on average. So if you look at this chart here, it describes two different groups. One is people who are 26 years old through 64 years old, and that's that line that goes across the top here. The second group are those who are 65 years and older. So it's recommended that people who are 26 through 64 get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And it may be enough for them if they sleep about 6 to 10 hours a night. But we know that it's not enough for them health-wise if they get less than 6 hours or more than 10 per night. But when we talk about older adults, 65 years or older, it's recommended that they get about 7 to 8 hours of sleep every day, every night. And it may be enough if they get 5 to 9 hours, but we know that it's definitely not enough health-wise if you get less than 5 or more than 9. So if you look at the difference is not by much. So older people don't need less sleep, much less sleep than adults who are 18, let's say, through 64 years of age. So there's not that big of a difference. We know that adults, no matter what the age, should be getting an average of close to 7 to 8 hours. We know that's an average. So there are some people that can have optimal performance and optimal health with a little bit less than that, and some that can have a little bit more. So in order for you to think about how much sleep you need on a regular basis, since we know that it does vary a little bit by individual, one of my colleagues graciously shared that having us think about how much do you sleep on a restful vacation night. So let's say you went to the mountains or to the beach, you're staying there a couple of days. On a night where you're not staying up late, you're not partying, but a regular night where you would go to sleep at a decent time, what time would you wake up the next morning? How long would that have been? Would that have been a 7-hour night, an 8-hour night, a 9-hour night, a 6.5-hour night? Think about those as the nights that sort of give you an example of how much your body truly needs. So that's just one way to think about it, but think about on average, our goal is to get about 7 to 8 hours of sleep as adults per day. So that's how much. It's also important how well you sleep. So are you having a hard time falling asleep? Does it take you longer than 15 minutes every time to fall asleep? And feel free to comment in the chat box if any of these sort of fit what's happening to you maybe every night or every day. Are you waking up during the night? Are you waking up too early in the morning? Let's say you would love to be waking up at 6 or 7, but you're waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning. When you wake up in the morning, do you still feel tired? Or you feel like you haven't slept at all during the night? Or are you falling asleep during the day? Let's say you're a student and you're in class, or you're at work and you're actually finding yourself dozing off. So that gives you an idea of these things, all give you an idea of how well you're sleeping. So remember, it's not just about how much you're sleeping, but how well you're sleeping. And then there are other things that come into play during our busy lives. So maybe some people work night shifts, like if you work in a hospital and you're working from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. But what about if you do work like that from Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends you get to have regular days like most people where you're up 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. instead of during the night. So let's say you're shifting from working during the night during the week and being alive and living your life during the day on the weekend. So that's your sleep pattern, is how you sleep, what times you sleep, what the pattern is during the week and during the month. Some people have very irregular patterns, such as, let's say you work 3 days a week at night, and then 2 days a week at day, and then another couple of days at night, and it shifts all the time. So that can cause problems with your body, because our bodies, over the many, many years that human beings have been on Earth, have sort of moved and shifted so that our bodies are used to being out and working when the sun is out. You know, that was how things happened hundreds of years ago, and even many places nowadays, and being asleep when the sun was gone and it's dark outside. And that was the normal routine that your body had every day. So our bodies, when our pattern of sleep shifts day by day, it can cause us sleep problems. So what if some of the things that I've mentioned sort of feel like things that happen to you? What if you're not sleeping well? Well, we know that if people in general, studies have shown that if people don't sleep enough or don't sleep well, that can actually make you be more hungry, which then can make you eat more. And it also leads to you burning less calories during the day. So you can imagine, if you're not sleeping well enough at nighttime and you're eating more during the daytime, and your body's burning less calories, well, that can lead to you gaining weight, which can also lead to you being overweight or obese. So that's a direct connection with how not sleeping enough at night can lead you to gain weight and be obese, for example. So, as I mentioned, poor sleep can lead to weight gain and obesity. So many people don't think about that when they're thinking about their weight and what kinds of things they can do to help. Some people think, I need to, work on my diet, I need to exercise more. Well, sleep has a big part to play. And if you're not sleeping well, it's not just your weight that's affected. It can actually affect your mental health. You can have a depressed mood. It can affect your performance at work. Let's say, for example, you're a driver. What if you drive a taxi, or you drive a school bus, or you drive back and forth to work every day? So your concentration and your ability to drive safely and effectively can be affected if you're sleeping, as an example. And it can affect how much you pay attention. So let's say you're a student and you're not sleeping well. So that can affect how much you can pay attention during your classes, during your coursework, during your exams, etc. So it can affect your performance in school. So sleep is an important part of many aspects of our lives, not just weight, but it can affect many things. And in fact, too little sleep can also lead to high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and heart problems. So not in and of itself, but it's one of the things that if you get too little sleep, it can lead you to developing some of these things like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and heart problems. So we've talked about how having poor or not so great sleep can lead to things like weight gain and obesity. But what if you already have overweight or obesity? Because today we're talking about what's the connection between sleep and weight. So if you have obesity, you can also have sleep problems. And there's a specific sleep problem that some people have. It's called obstructive sleep apnea. Maybe you know somebody that when they're sleeping at night, let's say they happen to be overweight or obese, and you hear them snoring so loud at nighttime. And then all of a sudden you hear them stop breathing. And then they pause and you're watching them and they stop breathing, and then they start breathing again, what seems like a long time later, and maybe that happens multiple times during the night. So that can be something called obstructive sleep apnea. In order to be certain, you would want to talk to your doctor. And I failed to mention at the beginning that this talk is being hosted today by the medical school, but also by the University of Nicosia Medical Center. So if you have questions for your doctors at the University of Nicosia Medical Center about whether you might have a sleep problem like obstructive sleep apnea, please do talk to your doctors there. And it is something that is known that people that have obesity can also have obstructive sleep apnea. And this problem with sleep that is called obstructive sleep apnea can lead you to stop breathing at nighttime. You start breathing again, but it leads to you not having a restful night of sleep. And it can also cause problems with your heart and then your lungs. So it's something that you would want to talk to your doctor about. So the connection between sleep and obesity goes both ways. If you don't sleep well, you can gain weight and develop obesity. And if you have obesity, you might not also be sleeping well because you might develop something called obstructive sleep apnea. So we've talked a little bit about the connection between sleep and weight and emphasized why it's important to understand that they're connected because it can lead to problems as we discussed. So now we're actually going to talk about how do you actually get good sleep, because what we'd like to talk about today is have you leaving today understanding some things that can help you sleep better. So what's important to understand is that getting good sleep is a balance of a whole bunch of things in our life, working out well enough so that our sleep at night is great. And that makes it sound harder than it is, but it's just to emphasize that there are many things that come into play to make sure that we get a good night's sleep. So it's not just about going into bed and trying to fall asleep. The temperature in the room makes a difference. How much light you have in the room makes a difference. Whether you drank enough water during the day. Did you just eat something that had a lot of salt before you went to sleep? Are you taking any medicines? Your schedule, how much water, how much noise, how much exercise, and your mental health. So all of those things come into play. And we're going to talk about each one of these, but just I wanted to share with you that it really does depend on a lot of things, which means that you also have the opportunity to think about some of these smaller things that you might want to change in your sleep environment and routine in order to make your sleep better, because there are a lot of things that you could try. So what are the things that you can do to sleep well? So the first one is you want to prepare your routine and your environment. And then the second thing is use some things that we know work. So the first part of our conversation now is going to be about how to prepare your routine and environment to make it help you sleep better. So let's talk first about that. So let's talk about routines. Now, I mentioned before that our bodies have sort of evolved or been created through the years that have passed where humankind has been on Earth, so that we used to work outside when the sun was out and go to sleep when the sun was not out. So that means that getting exposure to sunlight is important to our bodies in order to figure out when our bodies need to sleep. So you want to make sure that you get some safe daytime sun exposure. Right? And by safe, I mean you don't want to get sunburned because we know that can lead to skin problems like skin cancer. But as long as you have daytime exposure to sunlight, that can make a difference, and particularly in the late afternoon. So now that we're in lockdown or in quarantine, many of us are stuck inside of our houses and not getting exposure to sunlight. So think about that for your own schedule and your own life. And then you might be tempted to nap. Maybe you're tired, but if you nap, naps that are longer than 30 minutes can affect how your body gets used to or thinks about whether it's time to go to sleep at nighttime. So if you nap, it's best to nap less than 30 minutes and best to nap before 5 p.m. That's your daytime routine. Now, nighttime, your body needs to know that it's time to go to bed. So that's where having the same sleep and wake time schedules and times during the day can help your body be used to and understand that the routine that's happening, let's say you go to sleep at 10 p.m. every night. So if you start winding down at 9 p.m., your body will adjust and get used to that and expect to go to sleep around that time. So it helps if you're able to, if your work schedule doesn't interfere, as much as possible, to have the same sleep and wake times, even on the weekends, or not far different. So if you go to sleep usually at 10 p.m. during the weekdays, if you go to sleep at 11 p.m. on the weekends, that is okay for your body. But if you go to sleep at 10 p.m. during the weekdays and then at 2 a.m. every every weekend night, that can make it confusing for your body so that it's not sure what time exactly it's time supposed to go to bed. So think about creating a nighttime routine where as much as possible you go to sleep and you wake up around the same times. And I talked about a wind down routine. So your body needs to know it's time to go to bed. So it's helpful to have like about an hour or so before you go to bed where you do some things that help your body relax and understand and adjust to the time of going to bed. And we're going to talk about that more in a second. One of the things that you can do also with your routine in the day is think about when you eat. So you don't want to eat a big, huge meal like the one that I have here full of burguri and meat and french fries and maybe dessert and some pita and some tahini and something to drink right before it's bedtime, like at 9:30 p.m., because that your body will be affected by that, trying to digest and process all that food. It will interfere with your body's known schedule for your sleep time, and it will make you have some trouble sleeping. So think about the time that you eat and how much you eat. So eating too much food close to your sleep time can affect how you sleep that night. The other thing with food is try to limit foods that you eat after dinner or late night snacking, particularly those that are high in salt, because high salt foods also affect our sleep cycle. This rhythm in our body that gets our body adjusted and used to sleep time is adjusted if you eat things that have a lot of salt or sodium. So try not to eat food like that close to bedtime. And all of these tips that I'm sharing now are things that you can try, let's say one at a time, to see if it makes your sleep better. So don't eat too much close to bedtime and try not to eat high salt foods. Now, it's not just about food, it's about what we drink and when we drink things during the day. So it's important for our body to stay hydrated with water, especially during the daytime, particularly in the late afternoon. So focus on making sure your body gets enough water. Try not to drink it 30 minutes before bedtime, but let's say 3 or 4 hours before that. Try to make sure you're very well hydrated. The other thing is try not to drink caffeine like coffee or energy drinks close to bedtime, ideally within 3 hours of bedtime. And it's best even in the daytime to limit the amount of caffeine that you're drinking. So some people may say, oh, I can drink 15 cups of coffee and my body, is used to it. Well, if you're having trouble sleeping, think about caffeine as one of the things that you might want to adjust, because even though you feel like you may be used to it, even 1 cup of coffee in the morning can actually affect how you're sleeping at nighttime. So this is a tip for those people that are having trouble sleeping to think about what they may adjust. If you're sleeping perfectly and getting enough rest, it doesn't mean you have to stop drinking the coffee during the daytime. These are all tips for people that might need some help figuring out how to sleep better. So if you need some tips on sleeping better, think about your caffeine and try to keep it within at least 3 hours of bedtime. Ideally, limit the amount of caffeine that you're drinking. Similarly with alcohol, so beer, wine, etc., you don't want to drink it within 3 hours of bedtime because, like I said, it interferes with your body's way of getting ready for bedtime and being ready to go to sleep. So also within 3 hours of bedtime. And if you have any thoughts or comments about that or questions, please remember you can write it on the chat box. So now we talked about routines. Now let's talk about our environment. So where are you right now? Are you in your bedroom? If you are in your bedroom, take a look around and see how you feel. Is it feeling hot in your bedroom? Well, one of the things that can help with your bedroom environment, tell your body that it's time to go to sleep, is that the temperature starts to cool down, because that causes different changes in your body that make it ready for bed. So I've put on the screen here some of the temperatures that are recommended. So it should be cool, not too cold and not hot. It should also be dark, so that the lights are starting to go up, down, as if we were trying to sleep outside, hundreds of years ago, where the sun was setting and it was telling us that it's time to go to sleep. Well, your body actually needs that. So if you have a lot of light in your bedroom and you're trying to go to sleep, an hour before, you should try to dim those lights. Start making it cool. Start making it quiet, because being dark, cool, and quiet are signs to your body that it's time to go to bed. So try that 1 hour before your bedtime, and then obviously you should be comfortable. So the mattress, the bedding that you use, the pillows that you should be comfortable, because if they're not comfortable to you, that will also affect how you're able to sleep. The other thing is, try to keep your bedroom for bed only activities. As an example, you see the computer here on the bed. If you're like me, if we're working from home, you might be shifting rooms during the day, trying to figure out how to move a bit. But actually working in your bedroom on your bed, your body needs to know that when you go to bed, it's time to go to sleep. So if you spend time working in your bed, your body doesn't get that signal. So remember that you want to try as much as possible, and this is not feasible for everybody. If you live in a one-bedroom home where your bedroom is your bed, your office, etc., and you have to work in your bed, then obviously, that may not be one of the things you can change. But maybe some of the other things we talk about in this chat today might be helpful. But as much as possible, try to keep your bed itself for bed-only activities. Now let's talk about electronics. So maybe you're like me, that has a lot of electronics, and maybe they're sitting right next to the head of your bed, so that if your phone beeps, if your phone buzzes, if you wake up at 3 a.m., you just reach over and grab that phone and start playing on it. Well, or maybe not, like, let's say for the 3 hours before bedtime, let's say it's 9 p.m. and you just had a really long day. You're so tired, you feel like you need a break, and what you choose to do is you take a break by playing on your phone or your iPad and surfing, the social media, and you do that for a couple of hours because you feel like you need something relaxing to do, right? So technology like phones, tablets, being on social media, you need to utilize screens like the one that I have on my phone here that have a special light that we call blue light. It has a short wavelength, which all that means is it's a special kind of light that actually we have found out makes people feel more awake and alert. So if you've been sitting on that phone playing for the last 3 hours and didn't realize that those lights are actually making you feel more alert, and you thought it was going to make you more sleepy, that could actually be causing some problems with making you sleepy and getting your body to fall asleep. So it's actually better within about an hour before bedtime not to use any technology that has blue lights like phones and tablets and computers. Or if you have to use them, then much of the technology has nighttime settings that you can put on them to make sure that you're not being exposed as much as possible to that light that will make you more awake. So if you can, avoid using them near bedtime, ideally within an hour. And if you can't, try to figure out if you can use a nighttime setting. Sometimes there are these special screens that come with them to try to prevent your eyes from being exposed to that blue light, which then tells your body that it's time to be awake when you're actually trying to tell it that it's time to go to sleep. So think about when you're using your electronics and if there are ways that you can actually not use them as much right before bedtime. Let's talk about what's on your night table. So maybe, like I mentioned, instead of having all my phones next to my bed, I should move them far away, maybe even to another room, and have other things next to my bed. So it's actually been shown that maybe you've had the problem that at nighttime, so many things are running through your brain that you have to do tomorrow. So you go into bed and you feel like as soon as you do that, you have like a list running through your brains. Oh, I forgot to do this. I forgot to wash the laundry. Oh, I need to pack this for lunch. I need to print this paper for my meeting. All those things that you're worrying about are going to be running through your brain and making it harder for you to fall asleep. So it's actually been shown that if you plan some worry time, so let's say about an hour, half an hour before bed, you take a little notebook, you put it on your nightstand, and you have it ready with your pen. And as soon as you think, oh, I forgot to print that paper for my presentation tomorrow, you write it down. And, oh, I forgot to wash this sort of thing, you write it down. Oh, I forgot to pick up the dry cleaning, you write it down. So it's actually been shown that writing those down sort of takes it out of your brain. You know you're going to look at that list tomorrow morning and you don't have to worry about it. And it makes it easier for you to fall asleep. So try to put a little piece of paper so that you can write next to your bed, and try this worry time and to jot things down. It might help. The other thing is gratitude journaling. So we've had a presentation recently where one of our speakers talked about this because it's something that can help for stress management. So as an example, if you take a little journal or a piece of paper, and every night you write 3 things that you were grateful for that day. You do that for about a week. And then you can shift to doing it about every week or so. Something like that, which is called gratitude journaling. So writing down what you're grateful for at the end of the day can actually help your frame of mind and help you manage stress. It's one of the tools that can help. So on your nightstand, instead of your phone and your tablet, maybe you want to have your little worry pad and your gratitude journal. So think about what's on your night table. So let me give you an example of a pre-bedtime routine. So within the hour before the time that you want to be going to bed, you should be doing activities that are relaxing to your body and that also tell it that it's time to go to sleep. So here are some examples. One is you could take a nice warm bath and shower, let's say about an hour before bedtime. You could try some breathing and relaxation exercises, and I'm going to try to walk you through one of them today. You would start minimizing the noise in your bedroom, turning off any lights that are not necessary. So let's say you have an overhead light like you can see behind me here. So you might want to turn that one off, and maybe you have a lower night light on your lamp, next to your bed or somewhere else. That's the one you turn on when you're ready to go to bed, so it's nice and soft, nice and dim. And then you want to make sure, if you have control of the temperature in your house, that you let it cool gradually. So if it feels really hot in your room and you have the capacity to use something to make it cooler, then try that. You also want to make sure that if you can, and you're having trouble sleeping, one of the things that people can do to help in a routine is make sure that your bedding, make sure that your hands and your feet are warm before bedtime. Now, some people say that they don't like to wear socks, for example, at bedtime. But if you're having trouble sleeping and you don't mind that so much, it can actually help to put socks on, because having your feet warm is one of the things that can trigger this sort of routine inside your body that tells it that it's time to go to sleep. So think about whether your hands are cold or your feet are cold, and if they are, put on some socks. And we talked about the other part of the pre-bedtime routine would be not using televisions, computers, phones right before bedtime, at least an hour before. The other thing is, if you have an alarm clock because you have to wake up at a particular time in the morning, many of us have those on your phone. But if you have a regular alarm clock, turn it away, because if you wake up in the middle of the night, it's been shown that looking at the time on the clock that says 2 a.m., 2:01 a.m., 2:05 a.m., 2:08 a.m., that can actually make it harder for you to fall back asleep, for example. So it's better to just turn the alarm clock away, even if you don't wake up at night. You'll still hear it. You'll still be able to turn it off. You can turn it towards you when you need it. But when you're trying to fall asleep, it's better to just turn the numbers of the clock away from you. So this is an example of a nice and soothing pre-bedtime routine. So now that we've talked about that, if you have the chance and have something that you're thinking about in your sleep routine or environment, some of the things we've mentioned that, hey, maybe this is something that I might want to work on because I'm having some trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, give us a note in the YouTube chat box. I'm watching it now, so I'll see if anybody comments, and I'll let you all know what people are thinking about that they might want to think about if there are ways to change. So we talked about the first thing we can do is our routine and our environment should support our sleep. So it should help us fall asleep and stay asleep. But now there are actually some things, some tools that we know that work that you can also use. So they are physical activity, mindfulness, and meditation. There's a treatment for insomnia, which is when people can't fall asleep and it's actually affecting their daily life, and making SMART goals. So we're going to talk about each one of those. So let's first talk about physical activity or exercise. So we actually know that exercise can help you fall asleep faster and it can help you sleep better if you do it at the right time. So you don't want to, for example, run a marathon 5 minutes before you're going to go to sleep. Well, most of us aren't doing that, but what it really means is you don't want to do your very, very active exercise within an hour, let's say, before bedtime. Ideally, you want to do that at least 3 hours before your bedtime. And that means if you go to sleep at 10 p.m., you want to keep your very, very vigorous activity where you're running or cycling very heavily so that you're sweating and can't, let's say, talk or sing when you're exercising. That's what vigorous activity is. That you don't want to do before 7 p.m. if you're going to sleep at 10 p.m. So you want to keep that very vigorous exercise to early in the day. Because the more you exercise close to bedtime, the more it sort of wakes your body up and tells it it's not really time to sleep. But you do want to exercise because, as I said, exercise can help you fall asleep faster and it can help you sleep better. It's actually better if you do exercise in the morning or in the late afternoon. So that way it's not too close to bedtime. So think about exercise because not only is it good for so many other things in your health, like helping, prevent cancer and diabetes and all these other things, but it can also help you sleep better. And here are some examples. We know that many people think about exercise as going out to run or jog or get on the bicycle or go hiking. But another component, another part of physical activity is how much you move during the day. So you've seen me sitting for the last half hour. Hopefully you've been standing up and stretching or moving. But if you sit all day long, that's not good for your health if you work in an office and don't really move too much. So one of the things that can help actually you sleep better at nighttime and it can help your health is if you move, let's say every hour during the daytime. So take a break for a couple of minutes, do some stretches, move around. Maybe, every 3 hours, you're going to do some 10 minutes of just jogging up the stairs in your apartment or in your building. Just move in whatever way you can. Think about almost every hour, every day if you can. That's one way of getting more physical activity into your life. And that can help you sleep better. The other thing that you might want to try is something like a light exercise, like yoga, more than an hour before bedtime. So I said before that you don't want to do very, very active exercise before bedtime, but you can do light exercise. So yoga is one of the light exercises that can actually help you sleep better. It's good. It can help other aspects of your health as well. But if you do a light yoga routine, you can find some of those online, for example. And I'll give you some examples later on in the presentation of a free yoga class you can do or a free yoga recording. There are even some that are called yoga for bedtime, nighttime yoga, for example, that you can do within an hour before bedtime. And that can actually help you relax and unwind so it gets your body ready to go to sleep. So remember that physical activity, exercise is good to do for sleep on top of being good for many other things. So we talked about exercise. Now let's talk about something else that can help with sleep. So mindfulness meditation. So has anyone tried mindfulness before or meditation? Or maybe you've actually tried mindfulness meditation. If you have, give us a note in the chat box. I'm looking to see if this is something that maybe you're already familiar with. Maybe you've heard about it and you've been thinking about trying it, or maybe you've never heard about it and want to know what it is. So let me tell you about it and the connection with how it can help with sleep. So mindfulness meditation is a type of meditation where you focus on your breathing and on bringing your attention to the present moment. So where you are right now, so that you're not thinking about everything that happened before the day or everything that's going to happen tomorrow. You're just thinking about now and focusing on breathing. So nowadays, there are lots of apps. I give an example of one here. There are also lots of websites. For example, Harvard has a mindfulness and meditation website. The NHS in the UK has a bedtime meditation video, and they also have an app that has a Get Your Mind plan. So there are many ways that you can actually learn more about mindfulness meditation. You can practice it a little bit and try it out to see if it's something that might help as one of your relaxation techniques before bedtime. And not only can it help with sleep, but it can also help with stress management, for example. So one example of a way that you can do something that also helps with relaxation is an exercise that's called progressive muscle relaxation. I'm actually going to show you, we're going to do about a couple of minutes of it together on the next slide. So what is this? It means that we stretch different muscles and then relax them to help release the tension from our bodies and relax our minds. And this is a nice exercise that you can try before bedtime, maybe when you're already sitting in the bed, half an hour before you're getting ready to go to bed. And it can help tell your body that it's time for bedtime, make you feel more relaxed, and maybe make you sleep better. So we're going to try it now. So if you're not seated, you might want to get seated because I'm going to ask you if you can to close your eyes. If you're in a nice quiet room, you just find where you are, sit in the moment, or if you're lying down, just take a nice comfortable position. What you want to do first is close your eyes and just focus on your breathing. And breathe slowly in and out. And keep on breathing slowly and steadily in and out. And take note of how your body's feeling as you keep on breathing. Are you having any pain anywhere? Are there any muscles that are feeling tight or tense? Try to figure out what the difference is between the parts of your body that's feeling tight and tense, and maybe there are parts that are feeling more relaxed. And now we're going to focus on tightening and relaxing the muscles in our body, starting with the top of our head and then down to our toes. So let's start with our forehead. Think about pulling your eyebrows together. So just tighten your forehead, pull your eyebrows together, feel that tension, and then gradually let that forehead smooth out. And keep on breathing in and out. And when you're ready, just think about your eyes and close your eyes tight, 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 so that you feel that tension. And then let it smooth out so that your eyes are still closed, but they're not tight. They're now feeling relaxed. And you're feeling your eyeballs sink, your eyelids droop, let your eyes feel very heavy. And breathe in and out. And when you're ready, think about your jaw. Bite your teeth together, squeeze them tight, 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 tight. And gradually let go that tension and let your jaw feel heavy. And now open your mouth wide enough to stretch your jaw. Open it wide, wide, wide. Keep it open. And then release that tension. And feel your mouth and jaw relax. And keep on breathing. And now think about your shoulders. Hunch your shoulders, move them up and hold them for 5 seconds while you breathe in and out. And then slowly release your shoulders down, relax your neck and shoulders, and think about how your body's feeling. Now take your hands and close your hands, clench your fists, tense your arms straight out, and feel that tightness in your hands and in your arms, and hold it. And slowly relax it and let go of that tension in your arms and your hands. And keep on breathing. And now feel your stomach, pull it tight in and hold it tight. And then let it go, feeling it relax. And keep on breathing in and out. And now we're moving down towards our legs. Just feel your heels of your feet push down hard against the floor or the bed. Feel when you do that, the tightness in your thighs, and hold it tight. And now let it go. And feel your legs relax. And keep on breathing in and out. Now point to your toes so that you feel the tension in the back of your calves, the back of your lower legs. And as you're pointing your toes, feel that tightness. Point them, hold them tight. And then gradually let that tightness and tension go. And the last thing to do is curl your toes down towards the floor or down towards the bed, and feel that tightness as your toes are pointing downwards. And hold it and let it go. And keep on breathing in and out. And just breathe for a couple of moments in and out while you feel your body relax. And when you're ready, take a moment to open your eyes. Look around you. Maybe wiggle your shoulders, wiggle your hands, wiggle your toes, and think about how your body feels now that you've done just a couple of minutes of progressive muscle relaxation. Does your body feel more relaxed? Did anybody try this exercise? And if you tried it, you can tell me in the chat box what it feels like. Do you feel that parts of your body are more relaxed than before you started the exercise? So this is an example of a type of exercise that you can do when you're practicing mindfulness and relaxation, meditation before bedtime, let's say within the hour before bedtime, to help get your body, to tell your body that it's time to go to bed so that you feel relaxed and you get ready for bedtime. Okay. So we've talked about all these tips of things that can help you prepare your routine, your environment, some tools like exercise and mindfulness meditation that can help you sleep better. But we know that for some people, they have a hard time sleeping, and that sleeping is actually affecting their daily life. So those people may have something called insomnia, which is what that means, that you're having trouble sleeping and it's affecting your life. So thankfully, we have colleagues in our psychologists and other specialists that know how to treat insomnia. And there's a type of treatment that's called cognitive behavioral therapy. And we don't have to talk about what that means, but what's important for you to understand is that there are people that can help you. So as I mentioned earlier today, this talk is being hosted by the University of Nicosia Medical School and the University of Nicosia Medical Center. If you're having trouble sleeping, talk to your doctor about this. Our center, for example, has psychologists that you could see if you talk to your doctor and they feel like you need some help because you might have insomnia. So know that you want to talk to your physicians, your doctors about your trouble sleeping. As I tried to mention, it's part of your health. Maybe it's something that we don't talk enough about. You may not realize that to us doctors, your sleep can be important because we've talked about today how it can actually affect your health. So reach out to your doctors, ask them questions about your sleep, and they'll determine if you have something like insomnia and may need some help from somebody like a psychologist. So remember that there are treatments that have been shown to help with research and studies that can help things like insomnia. But we also know that for everybody, even people who have insomnia, the tips that I gave you today on how to think about your environment and your routine are things that will help make your sleep better. So remember that there are little things that you can try. And talking about little things, one important thing is I've mentioned a lot of things that can affect sleep and make it better, but you don't want to try tomorrow to change everything in your life in order to make your sleep better. So one of the things that can help is setting SMART goals. So let's say you have a sleep goal. I'm looking at the chat box. Maybe you can give me some ideas of the types of things that you want to make it better in your sleep. Maybe you say, my goal is I want to sleep better. Or maybe you say, I want to sleep through the night without waking up. Or maybe you say, I want to wake up in the morning and feel refreshed. Right now, I wake up and I just feel so tired. I want to wake up and feel refreshed. So those might be your sleep goals. Well, we know that it actually can help to make what's called a SMART sleep goal. So SMART goals help with all aspects of your lifestyle, including sleep. So SMART is an acronym. An acronym means that every letter in the word SMART stands for another word. So the S in SMART stands for specific, the M in measurable, the A in achievable, the R in realistic, and the T in time-based. Now, you don't have to remember all those words. What you have to remember about SMART goals is that they can help you because they have more details. And the details that are there are when you're going to start to do it, how long you're going to do it, and how long you're going to try it, and exactly what you're going to do. So on the screen here, you'll see an example. My SMART goal might be that I want to do a 5-minute bedtime meditation that I found online. And I want to try doing that 45 minutes before the bedtime that I want. Let's say 10 p.m. is my bedtime, so I'm going to do it about 9:15 p.m. And I'm going to try it for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of next week. So that is a SMART goal because it says exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that 5-minute bedtime meditation, when I'm going to do it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'm going to do it exactly about 45 minutes before bedtime. And I'm going to do it only for 1 week. Because if you say, I'm gonna, let's say I want to try stopping caffeine, and I want to stop caffeine, any caffeine at all. So I'm drinking 5 cups of coffee a day, and I'm not going to drink, starting tomorrow, any coffee for the next 3 years. You know, that's an exaggeration, but it's too much of a big goal. So you want to pick a smaller time frame to try out a SMART goal so that you can see what happens. Did it work? Were you able to meet your goal? Did you have any challenges or barriers? As an example, if I do this trial, was I able to do the 5-minute meditation on Monday, Wednesday, Friday of next week? When I'm looking back on it on Sunday, for example, what happened? Why wasn't I able to meet it? Was it because all of a sudden my daughter came into the room and interrupted me? Or was it because I forgot to set an alarm so to remind me to do the meditation? Or was it because the internet didn't work? Whatever it was that creates a barrier, it doesn't mean that you failed the goal. What it means is you have an opportunity to look back and figure out what happened so that then you can think about how to make it better. So that next week you may adjust your goal a little bit. Let's say Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays don't work for you because you forgot you have to take your daughter to dance class. And so that week didn't work because of that. So then the next week you might say, I'm going to try to do it Tuesdays and Thursdays. Or you might say 3 days a week was just too much. I only want to start one day a week. So you try that for 1 week. So just set a 1 week goal, say exactly what you're going to do, when you're going to start it, give it details, and write it down. If you write down your goals, there's research that shows that you're more likely to make it happen. So try out SMART goals. Think about what kind of SMART goal you might want to set that's related to sleep. So if you have thoughts on that, I'm watching the chat box to see if anybody has any comments right now. Feel free to let me know if you are thinking about any SMART goals that you might make that are related to sleep. And if you do, just put them in the chat box and I'll look and see. So we've talked about sleep today. We've pointed out that it's important to have routines both in the daytime. If you remember, you want to get some sunlight exposure, and in the nighttime, you want to have a bedtime wind down routine. And you want to try to make sure that your body knows what time it's supposed to go to sleep, because you're giving in that signal by creating a bedtime wind down routine. And then you want to prepare your environment to support your sleep. So is your bedroom cool, dark, quiet, and comfortable? Are you using your devices that have that light that makes you feel more awake right before bedtime? Or are you moving them far away? Are you putting on your nightstand that worry little pad so that you can just dump out the worries from your brain onto that pad and look at it the next morning? So think about your environment and how it can support your sleep. Are you trying techniques such as exercise? Are you going to try to do some light yoga before bedtime? Or are you going to try a relaxation exercise, a breathing exercise, or mindfulness or meditation on an app? Or are you going to maybe do that progressive relaxation exercise that we tried tonight? Whatever you want to try, remember that tonight's chat was not about asking you to change your whole entire routine related to sleep. This was about to give you some ideas in case you're having some trouble with sleep about one or two things that you might want to try changing one at a time and seeing if they make a difference by creating SMART goals. So remember that you want to give specifics to your goal and try it for a short amount of time. And then after that, see what happened. And remember, write them down. It can help you achieve your goal. And the point of this is you can get more restful sleep. So all these tips that we tried today can help you sleep better. Remember that sleep is important. If you didn't maybe hadn't heard about this before today, now we've talked about how sleep and weight are connected. So if your New Year's resolution was that you wanted to lose 10 pounds and you thought that diet and exercise would be how you would do it, well, think about that. Maybe sleep can be a part of that goal too. So remember, sleep and weight are connected. There are many tips that can help you get a more restful night's sleep. And think about how you might want to incorporate some of them into your life. So I am looking to the chat box at this point. I see a question. So if you have questions, I'm going to answer them next. So thank you. I see your question. I'm going to work on it. Right before I'm going to work on that, answering that question, I'm just going to point out, think about the chat today and one thing that you want to take with you after today's sessions. And if you want to write that down for us in the chat box, you can, but just for yourself, of all the things we've talked about today, what's one thing that might be meaningful to you? And before I forget, I just want to point out that this chat has a feedback form. It's anonymous. You can see on the screen here that there was a University of Nicosia Medical School and the Medical Center have a page that I've listed here. And if you registered or looked at it through there on the bottom, there's a red bar that shows feedback form. You can click there and give us some anonymous feedback. Also, if you're watching this via the YouTube chat, right below that, if you look on your computer, there's underneath the screen where you're looking, there'll be a little thing that says feedback form. You can click there. So we love your feedback about today's sessions and suggestions or thoughts about any future sessions. So let me turn to the question that somebody has graciously put on here. So the question is, are there any foods to help us to sleep, fruits, etc.? So it's a great question. So food is important for so many aspects of our health. We know that a healthy diet that includes lots of fruits and vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and things like water are important for our health, not just for heart health, but for things like the prevention of cancer. So it's a great question because foods are important for everything. So like we mentioned before, there are some foods that we know can affect your sleep. So we know that if you eat salty foods or foods that are high in sodium right before bedtime, that can actually make it hard for you to sleep. And then we also know that if you eat too much food right before bedtime, that can affect your sleep as well. So as to foods that can help you sleep, so eating healthy in general is a good thing for all the health reasons that I mentioned. There's no one specific food that can actually help you sleep. As far as we know that research has shown, there's no one magic food that can help with that. Eating healthy in general will help. There is a connection between carbohydrates. So things like grains, like pasta and rice, the timing of when you eat it can affect your sleep. So it's not that it makes you sleep better, but let's say if you wanted to wake up at 7 in the morning and you've been waking up at 9 a.m. every day, if you eat some oats for breakfast at 7 in the morning, that can tell your body that it's time to wake up. So that's the one connection that I know myself that I can mention to you about a connection with foods, but it's more related to the wake up time. So just to think in general that eating healthy foods will be helpful for your health overall in general. The timing of when you eat salty foods, you want to remember not to eat those right before bedtime and not to eat too much before bedtime. But up to date, as far as I understand, there are no one specific food that you can eat to help make you, let's say, fall asleep better or sleep longer through the night. Just a general healthy diet is a good thing, like you've already mentioned, which was fruits, vegetables, etc. Let's see, there's some other questions here. It's one of the similar questions. One of the other questions is, do you think having low vitamin D levels can influence sleep patterns? So vitamin D is important to different aspects of our lives. As to whether it can affect sleep, it's something that I would actually have to look into the research and explore myself. It may be something that's already been explored, but I'll say that I'm not familiar with specifically with the connection between vitamin D level and sleep. But we do know that vitamin D is important for other aspects of our body, such as inflammation and bone health. It is a good question. It's actually something that I would have to look into myself to see what the connection might be in research currently showing between vitamin D and sleep. So thank you for that question. You can also approach your doctors. As I mentioned, this talk today is being sponsored by the University of Nicosia Medical Center. So that question you can also ask them as well. You can ask your own doctors, and they might be able to talk to you a little bit more, since they might actually know what your personal vitamin D level is, and then be able to speak specifically as to whether they know if there's anything related. But I'd have to look a little bit more in the research right now. So thank you for that question. I see another question here. It says, is there such a thing as a biological clock that is different for each individual? For example, some people are morning people and some people are night owls. Is it important to respect what your system prefers? Yeah, so absolutely. So research has looked into that exactly as you mentioned. The fact that you said some people are night owls and some people are sort of morning birds is something that people in research have looked at specifically. It's recognized that people have those different sleep personalities. We know, for example, that physiologically, I was talking about adults today, but we know that adolescents, so teenagers, their body's sleep cycle is shifted at a different time than adults is. So they're actually meant to go to sleep later at night than we are and to wake up later in the morning than we are. So that's one example of how sleep cycles might be shifted. And that's something that we know from that, and it has been shown in the literature. So that is something that is recognized, and I think your question is, it should be respected. Yes, I mean, it's important to recognize how your body responds to that. One of the challenges was that we have to fit within our society. So I mentioned the example of teenagers, that their body clock shifts to go to sleep later at night and wake up later in the morning, but they yet still have to go to school early in the morning. So we have to sometimes fit within society, which makes that part a little bit harder. But yes, there are some people who are morning birds, who are night owls, and we just at times have to adjust our lives to society. But still try to, even if we are a night owl, we still need an adequate amount of sleep. So that's really the most important message. So regardless of whether you're a night owl or a morning bird or something in between, you want to make sure that you're getting enough and good sleep. Let's see the next question. Do I think that postmenopause women are more at risk of having irregular sleep patterns and are more prone to diabetes due to low estrogen levels? That's a really good question. It's probably not one that I would feel I can answer at this moment, but it's a good question to talk to your doctor because it's sort of an involved conversation. So what I would suggest is that is a really great question. So as I mentioned before, this talk is being sponsored by the University of Nicosia Medical Center. Maybe you all are patients at the medical center as well. So touch base with your doctor. You can have a little bit of longer conversation about that one. It's a good question. It's just a bit of an involved and more complicated answer. But thank you. Thank you for asking that question. And thank you to all of you, those who have asked questions up to now. Let's see if I missed anybody's questions. I think I've gotten all of them. So I promised you that I would show you some resources. This presentation is being recorded, so you'll be able to refer back to this later within the next hour or so. Usually this will be posted, so you'll be able to pull up this video, show up the screen, and then type some of these in if you want it into your computer, if you wanted to go to specific ones and remember some of the things that I talked about today. So feel free to use these resources. And some of the others that I talked about today, one of the main resources, obviously your doctor, your medical center. So always reach out to your doctors. Like I mentioned, maybe some of you are patients at the medical center at the University of Nicosia already. So I'm just going to look because I see that maybe there was another question in the chat box that came up. So the question is about alcohol and having alcohol within 3 hours before bedtime. And the point is that some people have a custom of having a little bit of alcohol, let's say whiskey before bedtime is what the person that wrote in the chat box is pointing out. And is there a reason to avoid that? So like I mentioned before, there has actually been a connection between alcohol and affecting sleep if it's done within 3 hours of bedtime. But one of the things I tried to point out earlier that I'm hoping that the tips we give today can help people that might be having trouble sleeping. And maybe, let's say, if you're not having trouble sleeping, having that little bit of alcohol, as somebody's pointing out before bedtime, it doesn't make a difference, because if you're sleeping well and sleeping all through the night, then maybe you don't have to cut that out. But if you are having trouble sleeping, that would be something to think about, whether you might want to change or think about eliminating or avoiding the alcohol right before bedtime. So all of the tips for today can help if you're having trouble and you want to take one of it at a time. So let's say having that little bit of alcohol before bedtime, if you're just having a little bit and you're not drinking too much throughout the day, is important to you. So that might not be one of the tips that you want to tackle right now. Maybe you wanted to think about another one of the tips, like tackling the use of technology or your smartphones right before bedtime. So that's also something to think about, that all the tips today, you want to choose the one that's meaningful for you right now, because maybe there's one of them that you want to start trying tonight or tomorrow or next week. So it's a good question. So you don't necessarily have to avoid the alcohol if you're not having trouble sleeping, if it's just a little bit before bedtime. And I'll just acknowledge that it's that comment. If it's just a little bit, we know that too much alcohol will obviously affect your health. And we actually know that in some cases, for example, in cancer prevention, one of the recommendations is actually for cancer prevention not to drink alcohol at all. So, but thank you for that very interesting question. I think I don't see any other new questions at this point in the chat box. And what I'll say is, as I said before, hopefully you can take one thing from this talk and presentation. What's the one thing that maybe you might want to take with you? Is there something that you want to try with your environment to try to see if you can optimize or make your sleep the best that it can be? Because we all can have restful sleep. We can think about some of the tips that might help us do that. So thank you very much for joining us. As I don't see any more questions in the chat box today, we'll leave you and say good night. But thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all of you, those that interacted in the chat box and asked questions. You all asked great questions. So have a very lovely evening. Thank you for your time, and I wish you a wonderful, good, and restful night today. Thank you all.